What's up, everyone? I'm Casual AF Gamer and welcome to my YouTube channel. I started this about a month back and today doing my first video with a voiceover component, so I apologize in advance if it's not great, but I think I'll improve as more videos come along. So, first things first, please smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. We'll be doing a lot of content in the future like this. Also working on a F1 My Team Career Mode series, so definitely going to be doing a lot of videos on this channel. For today, we are at Paul Ricard for the French Grand Prix and attempting to do a last to first challenge in the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton. So, as the name of the channel suggests, I'm definitely not a full time F1 player, definitely a casual gamer, and recently been able to remove most of the assists. I still have the racing line and the pit assist on, but everything else is off for the race. So, as we run down the grid now,
Looks like. Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas. The fence starts from pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who'll start from P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Albon, Ricciardo, Esteban Ocon, and Stroll, Leclerc, Perez, Gasly, and Lando Norris, Sainz, Vettel, Daniel Kvyat, and Grosjean, Raikkonen, Magnussen, Antonio Giovinazzi, and George Russell, Latifi, and Lewis Hamilton rounds off the grid. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
so here we go. P20 in the Mercedes as 5 red lights go off and away we go. We get a decent start. We are going to be starting on the medium tires. At this point, I felt that the aim for this first phase before the pit stops would be to just make sure that I am ahead of all of the medium runners. Typically at Paul Ricard the tire wear is quite high, so going on a medium to hard strategy and a one-stop strategy is definitely the better way to go. As we go into this sector, going into turn 5, we attempt to make an overtake and take 2 positions. Taking Latifi there. Latifi tries to get back at me, but really there's not much space going into that corner. So on the straight, I think this is the best place to overtake on this track. Turn 8, you can go as late as you can on the brakes. Typically the AI are not pretty strong. Over here you can definitely gain a lot of time. As you can see here, Magnussen and Russell are fighting against each other, and definitely we are getting closer and closer to overtaking them. So as I said, as we overtake Russell here, the main aim right now is just to overtake all of these back markers and get ahead of all the medium tire runners. As we go for a nice move here against Magnussen. Going into sector 3, we are on to P16, and as I was saying, the top 10 definitely have a disadvantage on this track starting on the soft tires, because they'll have to go on to a 2-stop. The tire wear is pretty high. Definitely we will gain an advantage. As we go into the end of lap 1, we are right behind Kimi Raikkonen in the Alfa Romeo. Going into turn 1, I was thinking of making a move, but as here we see Kimi gets an engine failure and he jumps right in front of me. We need to take avoiding action on the brakes and we lose a lot of time doing that. I think Danny Kvyat was about a second up the road, and you can see he's right now 3 seconds, almost 3 seconds up the road. So I think we lost about a couple of seconds in that whole episode as Kimi goes out of the session. But right now, any second that we lose is definitely going to impact us later in the race. It doesn't seem much at this point, given that Kvyat and Grosjean are not in the best cars, but trust me, but these couple of seconds are going to really matter as we end the race, and it could be the difference between finishing P1 and finishing P4 as we go along. So nothing much happened on this lap. We're still trying to eat away at the gap against Kvyat. So just going through the motion, going through the lap. start of lap 3 now. We have a gap of 2.1 seconds, so we made some progress against Kvyat and Grosjean. Obviously Kvyat has overtaken Grosjean somewhere. What I've typically found in this game is that Grosjean is typically a very, very difficult person to overtake. He's like a mobile chicane, he defends quite well. So, but we are gaining time hand over fist right now. 1.6 seconds, or 1.7 seconds away. Grosjean, 1.9, as I don't take that turn that well. We are closing in on every lap, every turn at this point, but as we do this, we are seeing, if you go to the minimap, you'll see that there is a big train that is being formed amongst the Ferraris and the McLarens, and we need to be part of that train as soon as possible so that we don't lose much time to the leaders. As the gap is now down to 1.1 seconds, we just need to make sure that we have a really clean sector 3, and we can then set up the move going into sector 1 of the next lap. Doing that turn quite well. As you can see, AI are not very strong in sector 3. You gain a lot of time, so we're already about 6 tenths behind Grosjean, gaining time on every corner. As we go into the last corner, I was not taking this corner pretty well throughout the race. Sometimes it was okay, sometimes not that great, but we do it well this time. About 5 tenths behind Grosjean. We have the DRS on. We try to make a move onto turn 1, but decide against it. We could have gone for a dive there, but as I said, Grosjean is typically very, very difficult to overtake on this game. He usually defends quite well. As we go in here, we cut the curb a little bit, but we're not able to make overtake. Going into turn 5, we go for a dive, make that move cleanly. I don't think there was any contact there, but yeah, I mean, that's the, it was very important that we make that move quite quickly. As you can see, Kvyat is 3.2 seconds up the road and Vettel a further 4.2 seconds. So if we didn't make that overtake, Grosjean is very difficult to overtake on this game, and we typically lose a couple of seconds more. We just couldn't afford that. So right now we are still on the mission of getting ahead of all the medium tires. Folks on the medium tires, sorry about that. And still chasing after Kvyat, 3 seconds ahead, as we do a bit of fast forwarding through this lap. Going into lap 5, I think. Yeah, going into lap 5.
We're trailing our teammate by
we are still about 3.6 seconds, so we lost a bit of time to Kvyat in that last sector, which was strange. I think I didn't take some corner pretty well. So we are going to skip ahead to end of lap 6, going into lap 7. We have made some progress, so Kvyat has overtaken Vettel, and we are about 1.7 seconds to Vettel at this point. And I think this is a lap where we really step it up and try and overtake both of these folks, because it's already down to lap 7. I think that we are planning to pit around lap 12 for the hard tires, and the hard tires are really, really bad on this track. I mean, it's just difficult to switch them on. So going into this straight, we are about 1.1 seconds, or we don't get the DRS, but we deploy a lot of ERS at this point, trying to get into the DRS of Vettel as we go into sector 3, because sector 3 is where we do shine and we can set up the move going into sector 1 of lap 8. We are about 9 tenths off Vettel. Just need to make sure that we have a clean sector 3 and can set up the move going into lap 8 on the straight, or maybe going in sector 1. As we enter into sector 3 here, do that very nicely, and you can see here that we're gaining a lot of time. We've almost gained 3 tenths on Vettel. Really, really gaining time here. 4 tenths, 5 tenths behind Vettel. Just need to make sure that we do a very clean last corner. It's typically where we are losing a bit of time because of the traction. As you can see, we lose a bit of time, but we are still about 4 tenths behind Vettel as we have the first round of pit stops here. We're up to P8. and going down the inside on turn 1 for Vettel. Make that move very nicely. And now we have Kvyat and Sainz ahead of us. Sainz is about 4 seconds ahead. I think he is the leader on the medium tires and he is the target for us whom we need to overtake. So now you can see the 2 seconds we lost behind Kimi. If we would have not lost that, then we would have been on 2 seconds behind Sainz and it would have been much easier for us to really meet our target in this first phase. As we go into turn 8, 5 tenths behind Kvyat. There's no way we're going to make a move there. Just need to make sure that we maintain this gap. Very difficult to overtake going into sector 3. Not a lot of places where you can actually make an overtake, so just need to make sure that the gap remains the same. Do that quite nicely. And again you'll see that we'll start gaining a lot of time going into this sector, about 4 tenths behind Kvyat. That corner, not very sure what the AI is really attempting to do. We gain a lot of time even though we lose time before, but we're able to gain it there. So going into this final corner again, going into lap 9, as more people make pit stops, we are going to gain a few positions. So we are P3 right now. So as I said, Sainz is the lead car on the medium tire. We are right behind Kvyat at this point. 4.5 tenths, 5 tenths in it. And we just want to try and set up this move for the long straight going into turn 8.
Gap to teammate behind
I
is
don't think I go for it here.
4.0 seconds.
No, I don't. So as you can see, we're just pushing the car ahead. Just 3 tenths in it. And we're going to deploy a lot of ERS. We're going to get the DRS as well. Let's try and go for a move going to turn 8. As Kvyat tries to defend, we goes round the outside and we make that move, and that's done. And now we need to chase after Sainz. It's 3.5 seconds up the road.
Brilliant. Nice move.
What I noticed at this point was that Verstappen on the fresh soft tires is really flying. He's only 3 tenths behind me. Very soon I think he's going to overtake Kvyat and he's going to be right behind us. So we just need to make sure that we don't lose a lot of time defending against him, because he's in a very different race at this point. He's on an alternate strategy. He has to make another pit stop. There's no point really in losing a lot of time against Verstappen. As you see, we again gain a lot of time in sector 3. The gap is now down to 2.8 seconds to Sainz. And I think we're going to skip ahead to the end of lap 10.
We're approaching the pit window.
And you see that the gap against Sainz is down to 2 seconds. Verstappen is 8 tenths behind us. So we have gained a little bit. I think he lost a bit of time in overtaking Kvyat, but he still is on the fresh rubber. We're going to get a lot of traction going into turn 5. It's a big traction point here. It's about, as you see there, 3 tenths behind. Just 3 tenths in it. 10th and a half. So Verstappen is right behind. He's going to get the DRS. And at this point, I thought I'd let him go. But as you see here, I go ahead and overtake him back. And I thought that was a pretty ballsy move. We didn't lose a lot of time there and could have led to some carnage, but I just felt at that time that I'm not going to let Max past me at this point. So as you can see, that move, as a result of that move, I think Verstappen did lose a bit of time to us. He's down a second, and we didn't lose a lot of time against Sainz. We're still about 1.9, 1.7 seconds now as we go into sector 3. Do that very nicely. And 1.5 seconds, 1.4 seconds now the gap to Sainz. As we enter lap 12, we are going to try and make a pit stop at this lap. and try and go for an undercut against Sainz. Not sure if he's going to pit or not in this lap, because we wanted to make an undercut and make sure that we are the leading car on the medium tire. As we enter into this sector, we see that Sainz has also pit, so we do need to pit right now to make sure that he doesn't get an advantage and he doesn't undercut us as well. So we're going into the pit lane. We just want to make sure that we don't get held up, as we have a decent pit stop. But
Exit now. We're racing
again,
the
on
exit.
this
Release,
game, I
release.
don't know why we get held up so much. There was so much time there and we could have gotten away. I think we lost a lot of time now because of that glitch. We get held up. I think we must have lost about 4 or 5 seconds again, and this has happened so many times.
Stop. No more
As you can see
scheduled pit
now,
stops.
Sainz is 4.7, 4.5 seconds ahead. You've lost 3 seconds again. So that's a total of 5 seconds you've already lost in this race because of the AI, because of Kimi's engine failure, him joining the track right in front of us, and now a really poor pit stop by my crew. Not really their fault. I think it was the Ferrari that held us up in the pit lane. But as you can see, 5 seconds now, the gap between me and Sainz. We've
Fuel
lost a
target is
lot of
+1.
time. And
Faster
we need to
engine modes are
really
available.
push. And it's hammer time now. We just need to push and get Sainz very quickly. As we're going into turn 8 again my favorite spot for an overtake, going very late on the brakes, make that overtake, nice move, and we are now in clean air for the next 4.7 seconds to Sainz. Just need to make sure that we keep on going, don't lose heart, and try and close that gap as soon as possible. We lost a bit of composure going into sector 3 here. Definitely could have taken that much better.
Okay, you're in the top
We
10.
almost lose the car. They're able to control our emotions. And the gap has come down a bit. It was up to 5 seconds. It's down to 4.4. So we definitely are losing a lot of time here. 4.8 seconds now.
Our gap to the car in front is 4.
Going into lap 14.
Seconds.
Again, losing a bit of time there. Not really gaining much at this point. 4.5 seconds between me and Sainz. Really need to just put our head down and just make sure that we are doing these laps cleanly so that we can gain some time on Sainz. We are in the better car, of course. The Mercedes is definitely better than the McLaren, but we just need to make sure that we do these laps cleanly. We had a good sector 2, I think 3.8 seconds now, a gap. Just need to make sure that we keep getting that gap down and are able to get the overtake done on Sainz sooner rather than later. 3.6 seconds the gap now.
Valtteri is in for his stop.
Going into this last corner, we have another set of pit stops. I think these are still the first set of pit stops that are still going on. Maybe I think that's the second pit stop. I think it should be the second round of pit stop. So we have our teammate now ahead of us in Valtteri Bottas, and this is a good thing because as we go into lap, we skip ahead into lap 17. We see that Sainz and Bottas are fighting amongst themselves, and we've gained some time on both of them. So our teammate doing us a big favor here. The gap now about 1.5 seconds to Bottas and 1.8 seconds to Sainz. We have closed down that gap quite a bit, but I think unfortunately now I can see that we are not going to finish P1. I think Verstappen is definitely way ahead in the
Verstappen's in first
distance.
place.
Very difficult to sort of close that gap down now because he is going to be on fresh medium tires. As we skip ahead to lap 18, The gap is still the same, about 1.7 seconds to Bottas, 2 seconds to Sainz. We are now struggling a little bit to try and hold this gap, try to get this gap down, but Valtteri has to help us out here. We need some help from our teammate to try and close down on Sainz. Going into this long straight up to turn 8, I think Sainz and Bottas are still about 3 tenths apart. Bottas is going to get the DRS on him, and does he make an overtake here? Or yes, he does. So our teammate has overtaken Sainz, and I think he's going to lose a lot of time over here. Now the gap is now down to 6 tenths. So now is the time that we really need to make sure that we overtake Sainz. As we skip ahead to later in lap 19, you can see Bottas is way ahead, about 2.8 seconds, 2.4 seconds ahead of Sainz. We are closing in on Sainz, and as we have done so far, I think sector 1, we just need to make sure that we set up the move. Maybe in sector 1 or going into turn 8, those are 2 main points of overtaking that we can do at Paul Ricard. 4 tenths in it, only 3 tenths now. We are closing in, we are pushing him, really putting him under pressure. We try and go for a move here into turn 5, we hit his tires. I don't think we have damage, but we get that move done, and now we are up into the podium position starting P20. So I think if you looking back, the 5 seconds now we have lost, that would have made a big difference in the race, because those 5 seconds, I think even in the pit stop, those 3 seconds that we lost, we could have been right behind Sainz and ahead of Bottas when he came out. So that would have been given us P2, and obviously we would have had to defend against Bottas later in the race, but I think track position we could have maintained it. But I think now this is going to be a challenge. About 2.6 seconds ahead to Bottas. He's on the fresh medium tires. We've been on these tires since lap 12, and I think he pit around lap 15, lap 16. Verstappen is way ahead, about 12.5 seconds ahead already. Just really difficult now to make any sort of headway against these two. As we go into lap 21, 6 laps to go.
The car behind has started to drop back. There's a gap.
Let's see if we can make any sort of headway and try and get P2. I don't think P1 is going to be possible. We skip ahead to lap 24. We've gained a little bit on Bottas, about 6-7 tenths, but really it's not enough for us to try and go for P2. What I've also noticed on this game, the AI are really OP when it comes to the last 2 laps. If we are not able to close in by lap 26, I think the race is gone. We will have to settle for P3. We have pulled away a lot against Sainz. He's about 5.7 seconds behind us, so we are on the right pace, and we are matching the pace of Verstappen and Bottas, who are on obviously the fresh medium tires, but there's just no way that we can try and close in the gap on these really old hard tires, which I had said, I mean, they are not the best race tire here. They are the best race tire if you look at real life, as we saw in the race Hamilton versus Verstappen in F1 in 2021, but definitely in the game the hard tires are just the worst tire ever. So going across the line, lap 25, we are about 2.4 seconds behind, and now you will see that as we skip ahead to the end of lap 25, the gap has increased to 3.5 seconds. I think we made a couple of errors on that lap, but as we enter into lap 26, you will see what I was talking about, that the gap is just going to increase multifold. You can see 4.3 seconds now Bottas. Even though his tires should be now crying out, they actually don't. So 4.5 seconds ahead, and this gap is just going to keep increasing because the AI just run full power in the last 2 laps, and if you're not ahead, if you don't have track position, it's just impossible to try and overtake them. The other thing obviously that I saw here is that I had run out of fuel. I had to keep it in lean mix a lot of the lap. Only on this straight I put into rich mix for a little bit, but then back to standard. But mostly I am running on lean mix, try to make sure that we go to the end of the race. As we skip ahead to the last lap, the gap is now 7.7 seconds, so definitely not a very strong end to the race, but starting P20, ending up on the podium, I think I'll take that. Could have been much better, but we end up P3.
Yes, that's a podium. Excellent drive. The team have worked especially hard this weekend, and this is a fantastic reward.
Red Bull pulling out all the stops today. What a great win. Tell me, Ant, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
I feel like consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
So that's it guys for today's
Red Bull
video.
are winners today
We ended
after
up P3 on
showcasing
the
some
podium,
incredible
pretty happy with
driving.
that result.
There's been a huge push from them lately
If you
to
like
stay
that video,
competitive with
hit the
other
like
teams.
button, subscribe to
And
the
they're
channel so
certainly
you
proving
don't miss
themselves.
more videos in the future. I'm going to do more of these last 2 question mark challenges and obviously a career mode series, so hopefully you subscribe to the channel and I'll see you later. Bye.